Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Emma Lefebvre and today I'm doing something I actually haven't done before. I am going to be painting a landscape without a reference photo on a large piece of watercolor paper. Usually I stick to, half pieces, or I even cut my paper in quarters, and I'll explain why in the video, but today I'm actually going to try and do a large scale landscape painting. So let's jump right in and start. Okay, so today I am trying something I have never attempted before. I've never done it on a video, never done it just painting on my own, and that is painting a landscape on a large scale. So most of you may know that I usually take a paper like this, which is like 15 by 10 inches, or my Arches pad of paper, which is I think 10 by 12, and I'll cut it in half or I'll cut it in quarters to do my tutorials. And the reason why I would do that, I have two reasons, is because I used to film with my iPhone, and since then I've got an actual camera. And when I was using my iPhone, I wasn't actually able to fit everything into frame if I were to use a really big piece of paper. So I would use a smaller piece of paper so I could fit my palette, my brushes, my water, everything in so you could see what I was doing. Now I do have a better camera, which I'm able to show you all the things, but there's another reason why I haven't attempted it either. Painting on a large scale or larger scale, and to me, this is large scale, is tricky because with watercolor, you know that you sometimes need your paper to stay wet for a longer period of time. And if you're working on a large piece of paper and you're trying to, wet the whole background, there's more of a chance that it will start drying in areas before you actually, get to drop in that color to get some color bleeds or do some wet on wet technique. It's just a lot harder to keep the whole paper wet when you need it to be. So that's also why I haven't done it. It's a lot easier, especially for beginners, to paint on a smaller scale. So I do suggest cutting your paper in half, not only because of that, you're not wasting a whole piece of paper if it doesn't work out. I just have always cut my paper in half, but today I am going to be painting on a 15 by 10 piece of paper, and I'm nervous because I've never done this before. So I am using my Academy watercolor paper pad. It's 100% cotton. I actually really like this paper. It's great. I did do a review on it on my 100% cotton paper testing video. And this is a really great paper pad, and it's fairly affordable too, depending on where you are in the world. So this is what we're going to be using today. I have my Winsor & Newton professional watercolors in my palette. I have a slew of different brushes here. And the one thing I will say, especially if you are doing a large scale landscape, you are going to need some sort of large wash brush to get that whole paper wet, say for the sky or water or grass or whatever you're doing. It's not going to cut it with a size 10. That is where you're going to run into trouble if you're trying to do a whole background with a smaller brush. It's going to start to dry up here before the time you get down here. So you're going to need a larger brush. You could definitely try with a size 16. This is a pretty big brush, but you could always use a flat wash, which will work. Make sure you have lots of water on there. Maybe even a spray bottle, have that handy just to keep it wet for the places that you need to keep wet. But yes, I would not attempt this with a smaller brush for the background. I do get asked quite a bit, what size brush do I need to use? And really you want to judge by the surface area you're trying to cover. If I'm trying to cover a whole background, I'm going to use a big brush. If I'm trying to do some small flowers over here, I'm going to use a smaller brush. Even though I'm working on a big paper, if I'm drawing or painting a little bird, I don't need a huge brush, right? Focus on the amount of surface area that you are working on, and that should determine your brush size. Now I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to open this up. This is a paper block, so that means that it is glued down on all sides, which is great because we are going to be adding a lot of water to this, which will cause it to warp. So if you are not working on a block, rather just a piece of paper, I would get some painter's tape and I would tape it down on all sides because it will warp and it will make it a bit more difficult. Okay, so I think I'm gonna Bob Ross this. And by that, I mean, I'm not even really gonna have a picture, a reference photo in my mind of what I wanna work at. We're just gonna kind of wing it and maybe add a couple happy trees in places. I have no direction on where I'm going with this. So this may work, this may not work at all, but we are going to see. So the first thing I'm gonna do to prep is just wet all my paints. I don't know what colors I'm using yet, so I'm gonna wet them all up. This will help me get my paint faster and allow my paper to have less drying time in between strokes. And we're just gonna start. So I'm feeling like maybe I'm gonna work on the sky first. Maybe like a nice fall day. Okay, so I'm just gonna wet my paper up, and I'm gonna take this big brush, which I got from Princeton. It came in a set. It is the Aqua Elite. So that's what I'm using. But if you do have like a flat wash brush, you could definitely use that too. And I'm gonna be quite generous with the amount of water I'm putting on here because I want it to stay wet. I wanna go back in with some color and have some really nice soft blends for, I don't know, maybe clouds or, I really have no idea right now. We are winging it. This is new. Usually if I'm doing a landscape, which I'm already not a huge pro at or anything, I don't feel like it's my most comfortable type of painting to do. I will have some sort of reference photo just to have an idea, but right now I don't. So this is all new. This whole thing is new. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, probably not on camera yet, but it's starting to buckle a bit. That's okay. And I'm gonna use my second largest brush, which is actually a size 20. It's a Princeton snap brush, and I'm gonna grab some cobalt blue. I'm gonna do a nice like blue sky. And I'm just gonna kind of drop it in there. Nice and soft. I'm mixing it with a bit of, I think I have indigo in my palette. And adding that layer of water is just gonna allow the cobalt blue to kind of go on softly rather than harsh strokes of blue. I want it to be nice blended. And I'm gonna leave some areas maybe like there's some wispy white clouds. Okay, I'm not going to cover the whole thing in blue, but you could definitely do whatever you want. So again, not going in on dry paper is going to help you soften that sky a bit. Because I'll just show you quickly, if you go in with dry paper, like the bottom here, you're going to get a pretty, I'm not going too dark, pretty decent like stroke line. And you want it to really blend and be soft. Okay. And I don't want it to be too dark or too bright of a blue sky. So I'm being really light with my color. This will also keep the background wet. I'm just gonna try and blend that out a bit. I'll cover that later. And I think, you know what, it's fall. I'm loving the trees outside. And it's funny, so we moved to Niagara almost a year ago now. From Richmond Hill in Toronto, like just north of Toronto. And I've noticed that the trees in Toronto turn a lot faster than they do here. Usually by now, we went to go visit a friend back around our old area, and the trees by October 1st were already like orange and yellow and stuff. And right here, they're just starting to turn, or a little bit later in the Niagara region, which is something new for me. So I'm used to seeing like bright trees by now, and they're not here yet. So I'm gonna put some in my painting to help make me feel better. So it looks really, really light in the wash, especially on camera. So feel comfortable to add as much pigment as you want. It doesn't have to be this light at all. You can definitely make it a bit darker. I'm going to add a little bit of Payne's Gray in there just to darken up towards the top. And I'm not doing like, you know, big fluffy clouds. I'm just kind of doing this wispy motion. And doing it all over is kind of keeping this paper as wet as I need it to be, which is the goal right now. Okay, so I think I'm going to do some trees. And because this is wet, I want them to bleed. Feel like it looks a bit different in person. Okay. I might actually, should we do some water down here? Should I do? I don't know yet. I don't know yet. Okay, I'm going to take my size 10 Craftamo brush and we're going to start adding in some trees. I'm going to start with some green trees. So taking my sap green, these will be like more evergreen tree shapes. And because it's wet, you're going to get these like blurry trees, right? Because these are going to be more background trees. I'm going to try and space them out just a bit because I do want some like nice like birch or maple orange trees in there. I'm going to grab a bit of darker green, this perline green, and plop it in there. We're going to do a bunch of happy little trees. Okay, just get some greenery in there. You know what, I might even add some yellow to my green, like it's starting to turn. That's quite limey. That's okay. And we're just gonna dab, dab, dab. Like I said, I don't really have too much of a vision of where I'm going with this. So we're just gonna see if it turns out, and if it does, that's great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Because I don't always know what I'm doing. And that's okay. If you want someone that knows what they're doing, you'll go to an actual art class that you pay for. Here, this is called experimenting with Emma. I talk a lot, I know, I'm sorry. Let's get some green in there. Make it a little bit darker. And we will probably go over it again to make them sharper. We're just doing that first initial kind of like blurry background. Let's get some orange in there. Fall is my favorite time of year. Mostly just because of trees. Get some red. And we're just dabbing. Okay, so if you've watched me do landscapes before, you'll know that my landscapes are not very realistic necessarily. So I hope you're not expecting that with this. They're not going to be realistic looking. We're just kind of having fun here. I'm going to add some more green too, I think. Look at those colors though. So pretty. Maybe a bit more yellow. I'm going to do some green too. Maybe some yellow ochre. Just switching it up. Bit more of our greenish yellow color. Maybe more yellow. Yellowy green towards the bottom. I'm going to have them cut off here, I think. I don't know what's going to be over there. Maybe we're going to do some water. That sounds like a plan. Not great at water, but we're going to make it work. We're going to make it all work. I feel like it needs more orange in here. Orange. And then a bit like darker towards the bottom. And we'll have some darker green too, just like there's a bit more of a shadow. You'll see what I mean in a second. Or maybe even some brown. Just the water line. And we will do some of the like tree trunks after on top. I might even add a bit of white gouache. We don't know yet. We could do. We shall see what happens. And this red here is looking a little crazy, but that's okay. Okay, Now I'm going to take my big brush again, and I'm going to start wetting it down here. I'm going to start from the bottom, and then I'm gently going to touch that kind of water line to get some of those trees to bleed into the water. I'm going to add my water first. Okay, so let's get some of our, oh no, oh no, oh no. Uh-oh. That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I made a mistake. I'm going to blend it out. This was a dry brush. Maybe a bit of blue. My bad. Getting too excited with my water. It's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's all good. I'm going to grab my blue here. Same blue that I had for the sky. Okay. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna touch it with the water. It's gonna bleed like that. It's gonna bleed down. And it looks a little weird, so I'm just gonna blend it down a bit more into the water, like so. I know this looks weird. Do I know what I'm doing? Nope. Okay. So now I'm going to grab more blue with my other brush. Okay, I'm gonna add some more blue. Maybe some indigo, make it a bit darker because it is water. Okay, just gonna try and softly, and then I will put the reflection of those trees in the water as well. And by the way, I don't actually know if Bob Ross planned out all of his paintings, but the way he always did them, it always seemed like they were on a whim, kind of like, let's just put a tree here, let's put this there. So I don't actually know for sure if that's the way he did things, but he made it seem like it was like off the cuff kind of stuff. So that's what I'm going for. So don't quote me or come at me if I'm wrong. And I'm adding a bit of darker indigo just so I can get like some ripples in the water. Okay. No, not there. Further away, they're going to be smaller. And then closer, they're going to be bigger. So that's why I said no to that. So I could even take a dry brush and just take some of that up to create the smaller waves that are there. Not even waves, just like little ripples. And I'm going to get darker as I come down here. Okay. Okay, now let's try and do this reflection. I may have totally messed this up, but that's okay. It's okay. So now while it's still wet, I'm going to try and match. Oh, gotta stop dropping water on here. This is also why I don't do big, big landscapes, because they're not easy. Okay, so I'm going to try and mimic very gently the same kind of tree colors. A longer one here. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going back and forth because it's just a reflection. Okay. Then we need more of that yellow. Not too much. Okay. Some of that yellow and orange. Now I'm doing more of like a dabbing kind of really quick strokes, because if I spend too much time mixing it in, we have orange and we have a bit of blue in the water, you might get a brown, which is actually okay because some of these trees really, they should be brown. But just don't spend too much time mixing it in too hard, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Sometimes I wonder if I make sense. It's fine. It's fine. There's some red up here. Red over here. Not worrying too much about it. And I think I need a bit more green in there. There's a bit more darker green over here. Okay. And then I'm going to try something. Okay. Now I'm going to wash off my brush completely. Not completely dry, but now I'm going to try and use a little bit of water and just do some like ripples with clean water. Just going back and forth gently. Just a little bit of water on my brush through some of the reflections to get, because that water is going to push the pigment away and it might make it look a little bit more like a reflection, hopefully. This is just how I imagine things to work. Why did I say it like that? Imagine things to work? I don't know. Might work, might not. I'm going to add some darker green on this water line here to really kind of, maybe even some brown too. And then fade out a bit more over here. I don't know. I don't know if that worked. I don't know how that looks. You guys could let me know in the comments. Okay. Just adding a little bit of water. Or you can even add a completely dry brush and just lift some of that color maybe. I don't know. All right. Okay, so there is our reflection. And then the only other thing I think I'm going to do with this is add more detail to these trees once this is dry. So now I got to wait for everything to completely dry, and then we will come right back. Okay, so now it is completely dry. We are going to add some detail to these trees. And I do have my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White ink, which I'm going to use for some maybe highlights in the water, some just, you know, details on the trees. We're going to see. You could always use white gouache or just a lot of white watercolor. And let's do this. Okay, so I think I'm going to start off. I'm going to use this size 8 long round Velvet Touch brush from Princeton. It just has a really nice point, but you can use whatever brush you have that has a nice point to get those fine lines. And I'm going to start off with some brown. So I have some burnt umber, but I also have sepia. And I'm going to do, I don't know, some tree trunks or some branches. I don't know where I'm going with this, guys. I'm going to do some with the white too to make it look like there's some birch trees or something. Have some trees like leaning, some branches. See, this is where it's helpful to have like a picture, a reference photo. But no, it's okay. We're just winging it today, guys. Okay, I know you can't really see that as much, but it's okay. Just having little bits of branches coming through. Maybe some darker ones. And once we do the leaves, it should look a bit better. Should. Okay. Have some thicker trunks. Okay. Let's do some white ones maybe. So I'm just taking some white. I'm just going to throw it in the lid here. I'm going to do some like, wait, hold on. I have a different idea. I'm going to take some black, actually some sepia, and do some darker branches, and then do some of the white over so it looks like birch trees. That's what my plan is. Okay. Once we add the leaves in, like the sharper leaves, it will look a bit better, I promise. What I think. We'll see. Okay. I don't know how many I should do, so let's just start with that and then grab our white. A bit more white. I'm just gonna add some white to like one side of the tree and then like some like little lines maybe. Remember, this is not realistic looking necessarily. Like, you don't have to worry about it looking perfect or anything. Just, we're having fun. We're experimenting today. See how it works. Okay. Do a couple more. I don't know. Let's add in some trees because this is like an example of a painting that I'm like, ugh, should I throw this out? It always looks weird in the middle, right? Before we start adding those leaves, you're like, is this not working or is it working? And it might discourage you. So you might just give up. But this is not where you give up. This is where you keep going to just see at least if you can create something out of it. So I'm going to try and do a sharper evergreen tree here. Okay, I'm just using my Craftamo brush and I'm just, maybe I'll even use that Velvet Touch brush again. Okay. Just making it really jagged. Actually, yeah, let's try the Velvet Touch brush for the evergreen tree. Just a little bit pointier. Okay, we're just going really jagged, side to side. You can have one like back here if you wanted. Maybe you don't see the whole thing. It's behind some of those other trees. Okay. We're just painting a ton of happy little trees today. Okay. Maybe some down here. And the trick with trees like this, that are like the evergreen trees, like pine trees, is do not make them symmetrical. You don't want the same amount of branches on both sides, then it just looks unnatural. So just like squiggle from side to side. Okay. Like that. Now let's grab my Craftamo brush again. And this will be a bit easier for some of these branches. I'm just gonna kind of work out like my bristles. I'm just kind of separating my bristles, just being gently dabbing it so I can kind of do this like dabby motion. And this is gonna look different from your first layer. Actually, I'm gonna go darker because you're working on dry paper now. The first time we were working on wet paper, so that's why we got those really soft blends, right? But now that we're on dry paper, that's when you're going to get those more sharper leaf marks. And I'm just trying to go around those branches that we did. I'm going to add a little bit of brown into there just to make them a bit darker. Maybe even a bit darker. Darker red maybe. See, it already looks a little bit better than it did before adding the leaves, right? You can do the dabbing motion, like breaking up the bristles, or you can just put it on its side and just do like tiny little dabs like that. Okay, and you're not filling up the whole space. You want to see separation. So you have some of those colors behind. yellow. We're going to get some green in there too. See, already looks better. This looks a little odd. I'm not going to lie. The reflection didn't turn out as well, but we might be able to fix that. Just give it a minute and we'll see what we can do to fix it. And if not, that's okay too. Let's grab some green with that yellow. I need a bit more yellow. Okay. Already looks better. Okay, I might do even some more tree trunks and stuff too. I do like that white in there. Okay, let's get a little bit more of those tree trunks in there. Just because I really like the way that looks. Okay, I'll add the white in a minute, and I feel like I have to figure out this reflection situation. So I'm gonna grab some green. Or I'm gonna add a bit more water, and I'm just gonna kind of go back and forth maybe. A bit sharper, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Told you water is not my jam. Landscapes are difficult. Just trying to create some watermarks. Gonna grab some white too, I think, to get some. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. And I'm gonna like highlight some of it with white. Let's try that, shall we? I grab the white again, add a bit of water. And I'm just gonna follow some of those lines. Not too bright. Remember, they're smaller towards the shore, and you can even do like kind of like a long shoreline here with the white. If it's still too much, you can just kind of blend it out a bit. Take some of your paint off. Okay, and have it go all the way across. But yeah, so the strokes are shorter and closer together the further it is away. And then the further down you get, they'll be bigger and longer. But you can follow some of these strokes that we did here. Looks a bit better, right? I think that does look a bit better. Haha. Does it look perfect? No. But it looks a bit better. And that's all we can ask for, right? So even back here too. As we get further down, a bit bigger. Excuse me. Like that. Okay, and then some more of that white on the birch that we just did. Those tree trunks. Have some of it up there too. I actually kind of like it. Like that. And I think, I mean, you could definitely keep going. I don't know if I necessarily will. Like there's some places here where it doesn't really have too much going on like any sharp leaves or anything, so you could definitely fill in some of those. But overall, I think it looks pretty good, and I'm happy with it. And you know what? It was more difficult working on a larger sheet, just trying to get all the spots wet that I needed it to, but it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be, and it turned out better than I thought it was going to. So there you go. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed the painting. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it, and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye!